At the end of the day, it's not about what you have or even what you've accomplished. It's about what you've done with those accomplishments. It's about who you've lifted up, who you've made better. It's about what you've given back. Denzel Washington. Welcome to Inspire Vision. Our sole purpose is to elevate the lives of others and to inspire you to do the same.
Catherine Duncan, welcome to the show.
Great to meet you today. Thank you.
Hey, it is great to see you. You were just telling me before we started recording that you were on TV this morning.
Yeah, I was on Good Morning Arizona talking about energy boundaries. Very fun.
Energy boundaries?
Yep, energy boundaries. We are energy. We have an energy field around us, an electromagnetic field, and we can actually work with this energy field to not take in energy from loved ones, the chaos of the world. And it's something I've practiced for 20 years.
Wow. Okay. So we're going to talk about that in just a minute. What I'd love for you to do is share with the audience who you are. And I know you have an extremely varied background, and it's amazing as I look at your bio. I want you to share that with your audience and help them to understand how you got to this point in your life.
I am an integrative spiritual consultant, and I have a private practice where I work with people one-on-one, providing emotional and spiritual support. I do quite a bit of public speaking, and then this last year, launching my first book, Everyday Awakening, nationwide, which is so exciting. I'm an ordained minister, board certified chaplain, spiritual director, and just passionate about whole person healing, studying it for the last 25 years. And I'm certified in a range of healing modalities. And so my background, it was listening, coming within, listening to the guidance that really started. How did I get here? I started when I was 11 years old, facing into dying as a very young child. I'm a survivor of having a very rare childhood cancer. And my parents were told I had a 20% chance to live. This is in the 70s. It was quite grim back then. They had no anti-nausea drugs. They did a lot of amputation. It was a lot. And surprisingly, no one talked to me. And I just felt quickly that I was walking a tightrope. I could feel that I was between life and death. And that is when my life, my own, I started out of nowhere to pray, even though prayer meant nothing to me, but just praying to live. I realized I wanted to live. I didn't want to die. And I was pleading, and not long after, this feeling of peace poured through my body, and it's just a knowing I was going to live. And I didn't tell anyone, but it just has been comforting to me to this day.
So you did not have a near-death experience then, but you were on the border of dying according to the doctors, and obviously that did not happen.
And fast forward, in my 30s, I did have a near-death experience. I was whitewater rafting in Costa Rica on a corporate Time Inc. company trip. And I had what we would call a near-death experience that was really rough. And it was a turning point, actually, for me after many years of being an advertising executive, making lots of money at Time Inc. and having a wonderful career but just like, that's it, I'm done. This isn't who I want to be. I need to listen. Where am I being called in my life? And after that experience, within a few weeks, gave my notice to leave Time Warner to listen to where am I being called in my life.
And with that, as I've read different near-death experiences from people, they all have a slightly different experience, it seems like.
Yep.
And so it would be interesting, I think, for the audience to understand what yours was like. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think that would be, do you mind sharing that?
No, absolutely. We went on this Time Inc. corporate trip for their top sales executives. We were in Costa Rica. We decided to go whitewater rafting. We were in rivers that were torrential. It was like level 4, pretty rough from rains. We shouldn't have gone out. So there are many boats. We were in a boat and I was in the very corner, and I had a life vest, a helmet. And if you can believe it, the head of our raft was they had like this Olympic team. He was crazy. All the other rafts were going around these rough rapids. Our guy was taking us straight down the middle. And next thing you know, I was thrown off the raft and I was deep underwater. And I mean, here I had this life vest, helmet, deep underwater, pitch black. And all of a sudden, I'm like, this is it. I'm gonna die. I just had flashbacks of being a child in the hospital. I had young kids then. I saw them. And all of a sudden, this white light came around my body. And this voice said to me out of nowhere, really clearly, living or dying is fine. And this peace poured through me, similar in a way to when I was a child. But I didn't know if I was going to live or die. And I let go. I think I let go of my body. I think that's how I came out from under a rapid. They grabbed me, got me on a boat. I was in shock. I couldn't talk. We had to finish getting down the river because it was such a remote area, and got through that whole experience. A day later, I flew home, and I'm in Minneapolis in a taxi driving to my home. And I happened to call my mom just to tell her I was home. My mother never shared a dream in her life and never has since. And she said to me, without me even telling her what had happened, she's like, Catherine, I dreamed that I slipped into a river and I almost drowned. And then I woke up. It was like the day that happened. But I share this because it was a significant turning point. I just thought I need to listen where I was being called. I was already feeling restless about what I was doing. And like, is this really what I'm called to do? And so it gave me the courage to just walk away and start to listen to where I was being called, which led me then to studying theology and divinity and chaplaincy. And here I am.
All right. So, it's interesting as you talk about a spiritual consultant, because we're going to talk about mysticism. We're going to talk about all sorts of issues that may or may not have anything to do with, quote, spiritual, and yet you are a spiritual consultant and you approach things that way. Can you explain to the audience what it means to you to be a spiritual consultant?
I would say ever since 11 years old, when I was praying to live, and all of a sudden that feeling came through my being of deep peace and comfort, and a knowing I wasn't going to die, and a knowing I wasn't alone. That feeling of just that oneness with the universe has been with me to this day. And I started, as I'll share with you, a teenager, voraciously reading life, meaning, purpose kind of books, like, why am I here? To this day. And I'm just steeped spiritually. And then I decided I got a master's in theology, a master's in divinity. I have all the degrees. But what does it mean to tune into that oneness of the universe? And I'll share with you, as a spiritual consultant, and for years I worked as a chaplain. I was a chaplain at a level 1 trauma hospital, Hennepin County Medical Center. I was a chaplain at Fairview Hospice for years. I've worked with thousands of people, and I believe in being ecumenical, inclusive. I think language is limiting. What is it for each of us, everyone hearing this right now, that sense of, is it a sense of flow of energy, true nature, God, Allah? I mean, I just, what is it for everyone? And this has been my life path. Almost most of my life, I have contemplated and tuned into that force, that life force, that universal energy that has guided my life.
Well, and you're being politically correct by saying universal energy. So being a chaplain and, doing all the theology part, is there, as you talk about universal energy in your mind, are you speaking of God, or are you speaking of something else?
Yep. So, and in my book, Everyday Awakening, I do use the language God. I mean, for me, the word God is actually very comforting, but I also will use universe, higher power. I'll use some different words. It's all okay. I think, I don't know, the more spiritually conscious, spiritually aware, mature you are, I think there's more of an openness. And I've just witnessed how those kind of words, people get hung up on words for the good, the bad. And what is, again, that feeling tone? And I'm just really open, even within myself, of how I use that language.
Well, and it's interesting. I got back from Thailand just last month and spent a number of months there, and it fascinated me to see how they are so open. In fact, I went to one temple, because I love to take pictures. And I went to one temple, and off to the side was a smaller temple. And I asked the guide, "What is that?" And he
Mm-hmm.
says, "Oh, that's a Muslim temple." He says they built that so that everyone would have a place
Mm-hmm.
to worship and be comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And so I find that most people who have any kind of sense of deity or universal whatever, they really have that sense of openness and kindness and accepting of everyone,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of their beliefs. But
Mm-hmm.
you made one comment, and I want to go back to that and ask the question. You may or may not have an answer for that. Why are we here?
Mm. I think we're here to learn to love. I do. I think our essence, our being is love. I think we're here to learn how to be fully alive and embody that sense of love, which is our true nature, how to love one another. I think that's how we differentiate ourselves. I think when we die, I think death is not an end. I've seen way too much as a chaplain, which we can talk about. But I think what we take with us when we die is our ability to love. That's why I think we're here.
Well, and as you talk about, you've seen so many things. I think there's a great fear among many people about death
Hmm.
and wondering what's going to happen after I die, or is anything going to happen? And of course, you have all the various thoughts and religions about, all right, multiple lives. So you've got the reincarnation people, you've got people that says there's just nothing. You have people that have the heaven and hell concept. You have many other concepts. What why so much fear, and how do we help people to understand, as you said when you heard that voice, that life or death, it's okay?
Hmm. Hmm. Well, I think starting with, I think a lot of people in the US, a lot of people in the world live in their mind. They live head up. Their mind, their fast chattering ego mind runs their life. And when that happens, and like people like Eckhart Tolle, brilliant, love Eckhart Tolle,
I do too.
so great. But when we're in our mind, you're in the past, you're in the future, you're not even here. So cultivating moments of presence, just basic presence of, if it's your breath, if it's using your senses, if it's putting your hands on your chest and just breathing to just bring you down into your body. Our body's always in the present moment. So can you feel into just this moment? And it's in the moment, that sense of great peace and aliveness. It's there. It's not in our mind. So it's just starting people on the path of, where are you all day long, and how can you feel into just the preciousness of life right now?
Well, and as I'm sure you've observed, being a chaplain and so forth, that as we get into the religious community, in my mind, there are only a few that really understand what we're here to accomplish. And
Mhm.
there's so much: do this, do that. If you do this, you're sinning. If you do that, you're sinning. You're going to hell, blah, 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 blah. What have you found in your process, in your, adventure that you're on? How do you help people to understand that those types of thoughts that
Mhm.
have been embedded within us are not actually fruitful to our overall happiness and joy, and perhaps even the intent of our lives here on the earth?
Mhm. Great question. My training, which was a couple years as a chaplain, doing what's called clinical pastoral education, and my residency, you really learn how to walk alongside someone, to meet the person on their path. My role was never, and to this day is not, to convert someone or this is the path. That's not my role. However, if someone has a faith that's causing them undue suffering, then I can be directive and like, well, that's not the belief I hold. I mean, there's a fine line in the form of direction, if it's in fact even spiritual direction or chaplaincy work. Um, and you know what? I've met people of all kinds and all faiths and all backgrounds. And I guess one takeaway as it relating to what your other question was, is just death. And I will say, and I'll share if there's an opening and a flow, that I think death is not an end. I have seen and witnessed thousands of people leave their body, and our spirit goes on. I can't get into details like, where does it go? How does this happen? But physically, I mean, I see spirits, I see angels, I've seen people's energy like leave their body. I've seen people come back and see me within days after they've died. So I do not have one doubt that death is not an end. We transform. We transform. So helping people open into what's their truth, and how can there be an openness in understanding all of life?
Okay, and as you talk about, you're seeing these people who have passed away, or you're seeing people who have had near-death experiences and actually come back, or both.
All the above.
All of the above. So that tends to get a little bit into mysticism.
It does.
And how do there's so many people who are so deeply, quote, religious. And so they think about mysticism as something that it's just kind of out there, and really they don't want to get involved. And, they'll read things in the Bible, maybe the Old Testament, about mysticism, and they label that a particular way. How do you equate mysticism, and what is your definition of mysticism relative to what you have personally experienced, and how does that relate to this overall sense of divinity within us, divinity outside of us? How does that work?
I think mysticism is just an opening to get guidance, inner guidance, guidance from beyond. Every one of us right now, everyone hearing this right now, every one of us can receive guidance. If there's words, clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentient, but it's cultivating present moment, being in the moment. And one of us might get more hearing or sensing or feeling, but it's really we can open into these gifts when we're in the present moment. One quick comment that might be helpful, that really helped me years ago, it was a short excerpt from Ken Wilber, who's incredible, a spiritual author, written many books. And he talked about 4 levels of spiritual maturation. It's just coming to me to share in the moment about where you meet people on the path. And the first level, quickly to share, is when someone it's just they're egocentric. It's me, 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 me. They can't see anything but me. The second level is ethnocentric. So like I am of this particular religious tradition, or, I'm Catholic, or I'm Jewish, or I'm this sect. I mean, where you're just defined almost by their tribe. Like they can't see beyond what their identity is with their community. The third level is world-centric, where you're attuned to the world. And the fourth is cosmocentric, the world and beyond. So as you can imagine, my role as a chaplain, I met so many people, some that were fundamentalist, evangelical, to really liberal, to agnostic, to atheist. It's like, so you learn a sense, I think, of acceptance and openness, and helping wherever someone is on their path, how can they find and tap into that peace in their heart and soul? How does that start?
Well, and you talked about suffering. And, that rings a bell for me, because I know that, for instance, in Buddhism, which I became familiar with while I was over there, he talks about getting to a point where you have eliminated suffering in your life. So there's a whole process of self-development there, where people are seeking to accomplish that. In Christianity, we don't hear that quite so much, and yet if you really get into some of the things that are in the New Testament, man is that he might have joy. Right. Be ye therefore perfect, which in Hebrew really means be ye therefore complete, even as your Father in heaven is complete. So you have all of these different religious aspects to help us to, how do we overcome this suffering? Because quite frankly, I really believe that men are and women are there to have joy and experience life in a sense of peace and happiness. And yet, as you say, so many people our suffering. And as Eckhart Tolle talks about, that consciousness, if we allow the ego to
Mhm.
get in there and create all of those desires and so forth that are not really meaningful, that creates the suffering.
Mhm.
With the work that you do, is your main goal really to help people to overcome that suffering and to reach a point of joy and happiness and love in their lives?
Yes, and I would phrase it as awaken into their heart and soul, awaken into the preciousness of what it means to be alive right now. And as I say that, everyone listening right now has had a moment of an experience of it. Even when you think of you're out at night and the sun is setting over the mountains, over an ocean or lake, and there's that glistening or there's that glow, and it kind of like takes your breath away. And there's a moment of like, awe, wonder of just precious is like, wow, I'm here. We can all experience that, but it's a conscious choice and it's a practice. Going back to your earlier comment, it is a practice, a mindfulness practice. Like, where am I all day long? Am I living in my mind all day? Or do I have moments of feeling into just here and now, just starting there? I call it building that awareness muscle of just where am I all day long and how do I want to live and how can I grow more peace and joy and aliveness? It takes some consciousness and daily choice and practice.
Well, and I know you talk about 5 essential practices to really get to the point where you open your heart, you open your soul, and you start to sense that. Can you share with the audience what those practices are?
Yep. So the first practice sets the stage for all of it. Come back to the present moment, cultivating here and now, which I was just talking about. The second is connect with something greater. And there I'm really open in how I language that. The third is grow your trust. The fourth is embody love. And the fifth is holding openness.
Do you care to elaborate?
Yeah. So the first one we started to talk about building awareness, like where am I? Am I in my mind all day? When your mind's running you can't feel that peaceful, that joy, that preciousness, that deep life. It's not in your mind, it's in the moment. So starting cultivating moments of presence. And then when you're cultivating moments of presence, can you then tune in to the sense of energy within you, that vibration within us? Even I experienced, here's a simple way to look at it. I experience that vibrational energy every morning when I wake up. I have a gratitude practice and I think about for a few minutes. I wake up. What am I grateful for? I'm alive. Oh, wow. I have a bed, I have family, friends. So I think it, but then I feel that energy vibrating in my body. Just starting there. Can you feel when you breathe into the moment that vibrational energy? And what is that for everyone on this call? What is that? And growing that sense of that energy, that inner guidance. And then that moves us into grow your trust. There's so many self-help books out there that say trust. Well, how do you do it? I just say trust. So I really push to what does trust mean? I think it's about coming into the present moment. I think it's accepting the moment. So much easier said than done. It can be hard with life being so messy to accept life. So accepting the moment fully, here and now, the good, the bad, just right now. And when we can accept the moment, we can hear, listening with the ear of our heart. You hear that phrase in all faith traditions across the world. But that's where that clairvoyance, their clairaudience, clairsentient, we can hear. And that's how we trust. Trust is a verb. It's coming into it. And like you get like, oh, I am on the right path. That's how I experience trust. And then the fourth, embody love. I think, again, love is the reason we're here on this earth. And it starts with loving ourselves. And I invite people to like, how do you love yourself? Here's a way to grow love in your heart. Here's how to embody more love in your being. The more love we have, the more love we can share with one another. And then last, hold openness. Can we go with the flow amidst life being so challenging for all of us at times? How do we go with the flow? How do we find that equanimous spaciousness? It's there and it's a practice.
Well, and there are external things, or at least we may consider them external things, that we can allow them to become internal. So, for instance, meditation. And you talk about energy. I know that you talk about sound healing.
Mhm.
And I'm curious about that for a moment. When you talk about sound healing, what are you talking about there?
Mhm. Well, I'm certified in sound healing level 1 with this amazing teacher here in the Midwest. Her name's Kay. So sound healing, I work with, there's a different things you can utilize. I work with crystal singing bowls. And even with the client, sitting with them, playing a variety of bowls. Mine are all tuned to different chakra frequencies, and playing them, the sound can come into your being, into a cellular level for healing that, words can't even reach. So it just, crystal sound healing is one way, one modality. That's a powerful healing modality. I use them myself all the time. I'm really attuned to sound, and I find that they're very healing to work with clients.
Well, and I know it can be very effective. I actually have a personal example of that. My son lost a child just prior to birth, and when he got back into the States, he's just really struggled with that and
Mhm.
struggled with that. And one day, a friend of mine that was in a networking group does the bowls, right?
Mhm.
And she said, you know what? Why don't you come up? And I'm going to do a session, and it's really interesting. It's kind of like a cave with water, a
Mhm.
pool there, so you get into the water, and then you just listen to that. And I thought, okay, I'm always open to try that. But I called my son. I said, why don't you come with me? He says, okay, Dad. And so he did. And after it was done, he looked at me and he said, it's gone.
Mhm.
The That deep grief, and obviously he still grieves, but that deep sense of loss and grief
Mhm.
was gone because of those
Mhm.
singing bowls.
Mhm. They're
And
so powerful.
and it's like, it's so amazing to me that that can happen. Do you have any stories you can share where someone went through a process like that, where the singing bowls literally helped them in their emotional situation?
Absolutely. Yeah, many, many stories. And here's a takeaway about working, I think, with sound healing bowls. You always want to start out working with them on a more minimal scale because they're so powerful. For maybe 15, 20 minutes, how does it feel? Does it feel calming? Are you finding some agitation? Certain bowls maybe can agitate you, but working with the sounds and letting them just sink in and feel that tone and the energy of them. Because it actually, once you play with the singing bowls, it stays with you for a period of time, that vibrational energy, because we're vibrational energy, the bowls are vibrational energy. And I mean, I find, yes, I've had many stories with clients and also myself playing them. I will feel like my heart center just vibrating. I can feel it moving up and down, all the way up to my crown chakra, to my base, just vibrating. It's powerful, and I can feel my energy centers open even more.
That's amazing. And then you get into meditation. How,
Mhm.
how does meditation work for people?
It's just absolutely incredible. Breathing, meditating, and this stems back to the 70s. Dr. Herbert Benson, Harvard professor and doctor, who coined the word relaxation response. We know when you sit doing breathing for 5 minutes, when you do a meditation, it physiologically changes our body. We can self-regulate. It lowers our blood pressure, our heart rate, our cortisol level. It soothes our body. So meditation, there's a lot of research out on this. It's really a wonderful healing modality.
Well, they're all, there's so many types of meditation. I would say in the last couple of months, I've probably interviewed 4 to 5 people that talk about meditation in a different way.
Mhm.
This works, that doesn't work, and it's just like it's crazy. But as you talk about singing bowls and the frequencies,
Mhm.
that they can affect, and we talk about meditation, I know that there's one type of meditation called solfeggio where you tap into the different frequencies. Are you familiar with that?
Um, Maybe a little. Not, I mean, I also, between meditation, you can do meditation with singing bowls. You can do meditation with using your voice, what's called toning. I mean, there's just a lot of different ways. And I would say I invite people, like, what speaks to you? Is it breathing? Is it meditating? Is it qigong, body movement? Yeah. But so tell me for a moment what that is exactly.
Well, so it's literally going in and talking about the frequencies that affect different parts of the body, the chakras and so forth. So it's very similar to singing bowls,
Mm-hmm.
only you listen to them and they have developed all these meditations that allow you to do that. So
Yep, yep.
it just gets to be very fascinating. So
Mhm.
as you talk about that, let's talk about, without revealing, names and so forth, share with the audience an experience you had where you've literally helped someone that's just facing a really challenge in their lives. And what was the process that you did, and how did you help them, and what was the end result for them?
Mhm. Well, I've had many experiences.
Just
One,
one.
yeah, one that comes to mind was a corporate executive man, very successful, done really well, but feeling pretty numb, feeling like just a numbness to life, to his family. And yes, we started out talking, like talk therapy, but then I led him in 5 minutes of a breath exercise, just breathing in peace, breathing out stress. And there was at the end just like a kind of a feeling like, here I am. I just, because the numbness dropped and he opened into a sense of feeling his heart, his essence. It almost took his breath away and he had tears. It was just like, wow, a dropping out of his mind that was just clenching. And I've had that happen with a number of executives, a number of doctors, of leading them in a particular, if it's a breath, if it's a meditation, where there was just a notable dramatic shift in the moment.
So do you focus on those imprints that we got as we were children, or even the generational imprints through DNA, the generational memory, all of those type of things? Is that one of your focuses, and you find that that's really the focus of what, if it's traumatic or unkind or whatever, that that's literally what's affecting our experience in life?
Yes, with people I work with, if even just going back to what's called attachment theory, how they attached as an infant, a child with their parents directly implicates how they attach in their relationships to this day. So yes, if there's some unfinished, unresolved trauma, blockages, themes of which is so common. I'm not enough. I never heard I was enough. I was told it, seen but not heard. You have to unearth that to some extent, to move through it, to process it, to integrate it, to get it in the front of your brain for what's called neurocortical integration, the thoughts, the feelings, processing it to heal. And the pathway to healing is feeling of feelings. It is, even just little bits at a time. And I have found with many people I've worked with that there can be something from childhood, an experience that just stuck within them that they've just blocked, they've pushed down, and the tremendous healing happens when it can be unearthed and named and slowly processed. If it's processed verbally, then through body movements, then through breath, then through feeling. That's how healing and the integration happens.
And does the processing actually remove it, or does it just help someone to become mindful enough that when it comes up, they recognize it's no longer going to affect them?
I'd say a lot of it can be released. So love, light, peace can come in. Can there be still a very thin thread that can carry on through some of a lifetime? Yeah. But I think I do fully believe we can all heal. It's a choice, and it takes some real courage and strength to decide, I want to heal. I want to feel more. I want to feel love and joy in my life.
Well, let's talk a little bit scientifically, because as you're talking about that literally, as we talk about the brain has developed neural pathways
Mhm.
based on those subconscious beliefs. I mean, bottom line is that is the main controlling factor in our lives. The
Mhm.
conscious is very minimal, as I understand it. So as we talk about that, how do we get to the point where, and scientifically, do we literally find that we can take those neural pathways that have been with us our whole life,
Mhm.
and start to modify those or move them away and create new ones. What's your vision on that and thoughts about that?
Well, two pathways we can go. One, I'm trained and certified in neuroplasticity, and that is what we think and feel in our environment, shaping our brain all day long till the day we die. So we can rewire old negative thinking patterns, worry, anxious patterns by just bringing it into and creating positive new neural pathways by bringing it, number one, into awareness. When we can name what that loop, that worry loop, that fear loop, that anxious loop, when we can name it, calms our nervous system. Number two, when we can name the feeling, not always easy, it calms our nervous system. Number three, when we can feel it, it will start to dissipate. And then number four, growing the good, marinating in the positive, a positive image. That truly is what's creating those positive new neural pathways. I write about this in my book. This is all the neural models I've studied so far. They all have these 4 steps. So that's one path. One other path, though, is with awareness. So, for example, if you're aware, gosh, I have a hard time loving myself, or I never grew up hearing I love you, and I have a hard time feeling love, we can do practices to grow the love in our hearts. So even what's called, this comes way back from mirror work with Louise Hay, looking in the mirror and saying, I love you, I really love you, I really love you, put your name in there. You say that 10 times every day for a month, I can guarantee you that will start to open your heart and shift you. And when you're doing that, you're telling your subconscious words they've never heard. So there's literally ways that, yes, we can rewire our negative thinking mind, but also how to grow our heart and soul and shift from that subconscious pattern of just being blocked.
Well, and I hear it so often that, I am who I am. I'm never going to change. That's not true, is it?
Mm-mm, no way. That's a mindset. That's a fixed mindset. Yep. So, in all of life, every one of us, it's like how, and that's a big takeaway from my book. How are you choosing to live? Are you choosing to live on autopilot where your life's living you, your mind's living you? Or are you choosing like, I want to open more, I want to grow, I want to feel more love in my life? That's a choice, and it's a practice every day.
Well, and as you talk about your book, what are the main themes you talk about? So you talk about neuroplasticity.
Mhm.
You talk about, I would assume, spirituality. What are the things that you talk about in your book that would be intriguing for people?
Yeah. So the 5 practices we just talked about are the core of my book, but I also have 42 exercises in my book. So my book is not just in your mind theory, but let's try this. Let's try all these different angles to come at feeling into just this moment. So exercises of breath or meditation, or how to work with body, or your body movement, how to work with energy, how to work with your voice. I have many different angles to come at these 5 practices for the reader to actually experience it, to really like, how is this for you? Let's try this, and be open to what speaks to you when you're reading the book.
Well, and I'm curious, you talked about energy boundaries that you
Mhm.
were talking about this morning. What exactly is that? And how does someone develop enough of an energy boundary that they are really protected from all the negativity of the outside world?
Mhm. So we're energy. Everything is energy. We have an energy field around us as far as our arms extend, called our aura. It's an electromagnetic field. So we actually can work with our field not to take in energy of those closest to us, the chaos of the world. And I'll share with you, so exciting. The medical community is finally acknowledging this. In the recent edition of the #1 medical textbook in the United States, called Integrative Medicine by David Rakel for integrative doctors, they have a snippet on this. So I'm just sharing, this is finally being seen in the medical community. So here's some ways. I'll just give you a few. You can visualize, and I write these in my book, you can visualize like a white light around your body forming into, as far as your arms extend, an eggshell, a bubble. I always have a hole at the top for light and love to come through. so that any negative, heavy, harmful, tough, rough energy can just hits the eggshell and drops away. Same analogy, eggshell, hole at the top with mirrors on the outside. So just visualizing mirrors where that energy hits the mirrors and drops away. One more way, this is what I do every day and have for 20 some years. I set through words and intentions for a minute in the morning, every morning of my life for the last 20 years, where I want to send love or peace out. So I choose love. So I'm going to send 70% love and only taking 30, or 80, 20, 90, 10. I do 90, 10 because I'm really empathic and I get a lot. So I just say I'm going to send 90% love to everyone and anything that I encounter today. And I'm only going to take in 10%. And I say that a few times and I can feel my energy boundaries just set up. And it's like, oh, here I am. I just have breathing room. It's life-changing.
Wow. So as you think about, and you've said so many fascinating and good things, but as we close, what would be a message that you'd like to share with the audience?
I would just invite people listening to this, what do you want in your life? And I think life is deeply precious. It's a gift to be alive. And I witnessed so many people as a hospice chaplain that I was with as they died, understand like, oh, I'm here. And then they died. And I think everyone hearing this, you can cultivate and grow that sense of preciousness of life right now. Just starting with tuning in. How are you living your day? Are you living your day where you're in your mind all day? Or are there some moments of just here I am, presence with your breath, using your senses, go for a walk, use your senses, just here I am in nature walking, to just feel that sense of, wow, wonderment, awe, this life, the preciousness of being alive. And that's the big takeaway I want to share with people, that it's here now. You don't have to wait.
Yeah, I love that. So how do people find you and how do people find your book?
My book, Everyday Awakening, it is on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and it's all over. My website is everydayawakening.com. I'm on social media, Catherine with the C, Catherine Duncan, MABCC is my Instagram, my LinkedIn, my TikTok, and Facebook. It's my company name, Learning to Live. So there's a lot out there.
And the outcome for people is?
Peace, joy, love.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Catherine, thanks so much for being on the show. This has been amazing.
Yeah, great to meet you. Thank you.
I really appreciate it. Folks, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. And it's really a good book. Take a look at it and see if it can be of some value to you. This is Dr. Doug saying have a wonderful week and namaste.